What's up, boys and girls? It's Mr. Verma, and today's third grade ELA lesson is about my favorite genre to read. And as you probably guessed from this title slide, we're going to be learning about poems and poetry. And before I begin, I wanted to just let you guys know about two important ideas about poems. So the first one is that it's always a good idea to read a poem over and over again because each time you read it, you may notice something a little bit different that you didn't notice the prior time that you read it. And another important idea that you should know is that there's no way to get a poem right or wrong. And that's because a good poem has multiple different meanings. So the way that I read and understand and take a meaning of a poem may be completely different from yours, and that's okay, because good poems have multiple meanings. And with that being said, before we go into reading a poem, I want to go over some poetic features. And these are not all the poetic features that poems have. These are just the three that we're going to be focusing on during today's video. So just like nonfiction and fiction texts have their own features like table of contents, captions, indexes, paragraphs, poems have their own features. So the three that we're going to be focusing on in this video are stanzas, rhyming words, and line breaks. And just to be clear, these are just the three that we're focusing on in today's video. There are many other poetic features, but we're only going to be focusing on stanzas, rhyming words, and line breaks today. So a stanza is a group of lines that's within a poem. It does look a little bit like a paragraph, but when we look at these poems, we're going to notice that one sentence can go across 2 or 3 or 4 lines, and that is a stanza. We're also going to be looking at rhyming words, and rhyming words are words that have the same end sound. They have the same end sound, like cat, bat, tough, rough. And then we're also going to look at line breaks. So line breaks are the point at which the poet chooses to end one line right before they begin the other. So the first poem that we're going to be reading today is called If Dogs Could Talk. And I'm going to read it twice, and as I read it, I want you guys to follow along with me. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our poetic features chart, and we're going to try to find the 3 features that we're learning about in today's video. Here we go. If Dogs Could Talk by Kirk Mann. If dogs could talk, I think our dog would have a lot to say. He'd probably tell my little brother, sit, and now just stay. He'd probably tell my sister, how about an ice cream cone? He'd probably tell my mother, please go get me a big bone. He'd probably tell my father, make a left turn up ahead. He'd probably tell me, kid, tonight I'm sleeping in your bed. I'm going to read it one more time, and then after I read it, we're going to go look at the text features of this poem. If Dogs Could Talk by Kirk Mann. If dogs could talk, I think our dog would have a lot to say. He'd probably tell my little brother, sit, and now just stay. He'd probably tell my sister, how about an ice cream cone? He'd probably tell my mother, please go get me a big bone. He'd probably tell my father, make a left turn up ahead. He'd probably tell me, kid, tonight I'm sleeping in your bed. So now I'm on my poetic features chart, and I'm noticing that the first poetic feature we have is stanzas. And I remember that stanzas are a group of lines within a poem. So what I have highlighted here is I have highlighted the 3 stanzas. These are 3 groups of lines that are in the poem If Dogs Could Talk. So now I'm looking at my chart, and I see that the second poetic feature that we can have are rhyming words. And rhyming words are when the end sound of 2 words are the same. So you'll see in blue, I have the words say and stay highlighted because those words rhyme. They both have the same ending sound, A. Then in orange, I have the words cone and bone highlighted because they both have the same ending sound, own, which means they're rhyming words. Then I have the 2 words ahead and bed highlighted in green because they both have the ending sound, ed, and therefore ahead and bed are rhyming words. So far we've noticed that this poem, If Dogs Could Talk, has stanzas, and it also has rhyming words. Then the third poetic feature, line breaks, which is where poets choose to end a line, are also in the text If Dogs Could Talk. So what I have highlighted in yellow is one area where the poet decides to break the line. So remember, if dogs could talk, I think our dog would have a lot to say. The first part highlighted in yellow, that's one sentence. But what this poet decided to do is they decided to break that long sentence, that which would have been a full line if it was on the page, and they decided to break it between dog and would. So the first line says, if dogs could talk, I think our dog. And then the second line, after the break, says would have a lot to say. So that is one sentence, but the poet decided to break that sentence and that line into two. Now I'm going to go to the second highlighted box, which is in blue. It says, the sentence reads, he'd probably tell my little brother, sit, and now just stay. And I'm noticing that this long line is actually broken after the word brother, because it's one sentence. What's in that blue box is one sentence, and it's actually being broken up after the word brother. And now the same thing is happening in the second yellow box. He'd probably tell my sister, how about an ice cream cone? That was one sentence, but the author broke it in half at the word sister. And now I'm going to look at the second blue box. It says, he'd probably tell my mother, please go get me a big bone. That was one sentence that the author decided to break after the word mother. And now I'm going to look at the last stanza. The first box that's yellow reads, he'd probably tell my father, make a left turn up ahead. What the author did there is the author broke that line up after the word father. And now I'm going to look at the last box in blue, which reads, he'd probably tell me, kid, tonight I'm sleeping in your bed. That's one long sentence, but what the author decided to do is the author decided to break that long line or that long sentence into three parts. He broke it up after the word me, he broke it up after the word tonight, and therefore we have three lines. So you all just had a chance to watch me locate the three poetic features that we're focusing on in this video, but now you're going to get a chance to do this work with me. We're going to be reading this poem, I Caught a Fish Alive, together 2 times, and then we're going to try to find the three poetic features. I caught a fish alive. As I read it, I want you to follow along with me. I caught a fish alive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I will let it go again. Why will I let it go? Because it bit my finger so. Which little finger did it bite? This little finger on the right. Let's read it one more time. I caught a fish alive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I caught a fish alive. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I will let it go again. Why will I let it go? Because it bit my finger so. Which little finger did it bite? This little finger on the right. So now we got a chance to read the poem I Caught a Fish Alive 2 times, and I want to look at my poetic features chart again. And I'm noticing the first poetic feature that we have is stanzas. And stanzas are a group of lines that are within a poem. So are we noticing any groups of lines in this poem? I'll give you a few seconds to figure it out. And if you need more time, please feel free to pause the video. So if you'll take note at what I just highlighted, these are 4 stanzas or 4 groups of lines within the poem. So this poem has 4 stanzas. Now I'm going to look at the second poetic feature. And the second poetic feature that we can have in a poem is rhyming words. So remember, rhyming words are words that have the same end sound. So I'm going to give you guys a few seconds to locate the rhyming words in this poem. And if you need more time, feel free to pause the video. So if you take a look at the words that I've highlighted, each pair of colors are rhyming words. So the words 5 and alive in blue, they rhyme. The words 10 and again, they rhyme. The words go and so, they rhyme because they have the same end sound. And the words bite and right in green, they rhyme because they have the same end sound. But I want you to take a look at the words in red and green. So 10 and again, and I want you to look at bite and right. What I'm noticing is that those words, they are spelled differently at the end. But remember, they still rhyme because rhyming words have the same end sound. So spelling doesn't matter. The sound is what matters. So even though 10 and again, EN is what's making the N sound, and again, AIN is making the N sound, that's totally okay because they have the same end sound. And then in the word bite, ITE is making the IT sound, and in write, IGHT is making the IT sound. So even though those two words have different spellings of the sound IT, they sound the same at the end, and therefore they are rhyming words. And the last poetic feature on my poetic feature chart that we're working on today are line breaks, the point at which a poet chooses to end a line and begin another. I want you to take a few seconds to look at where we have line breaks in this poem. And I want you to think to yourself, why did the poet choose to break the lines at those points? Go ahead. And if you need more time, feel free to pause the video. So I've just highlighted the first stanza, and right where I have that red star, that is where this poet has the line break in that first stanza. And you might be wondering, why do poets even use line breaks? That's a good question. So obviously I'm not sitting with the poet, the person who wrote this poem. I'm sitting here in my house. So I don't know how this poet wants the poem to be read. But because they have a line break, I know that the poet wants me to take a little pause and a little stop over there. So instead of reading it like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I caught a fish alive, because I see that line break where that red star is, I know that I need to take a break too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I caught a fish alive. So even though the author is not here, I know what the author wishes of me to read this text. They want me to stop or take a break at the line break. Now I've just highlighted the second stanza, and right where I have that red star, that is where the poet has the second line break. So I could read it as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I'll let it go again, but because there's a line break, I know the author wants me to take a break, and I can read it as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I will let it go again. That's how the author wants me to read it. I'm going to look at my third stanza now. It says, why will I let it go? Because it bit my finger so. And when I look for the line break in this stanza, it's pretty easy. It's right where that red star is. And the reason it was easy is because there was a punctuation mark that indicates that that the sentence, why will I let it go, has ended right where that question mark is. And a question that I have is, why do you think the author decided to have a line break between why will I let it go and because it bit my finger so? Pause this video while you're thinking. So the reason, in my opinion, that the author has a line break over there is because the author is asking a question and then the author is giving an answer. And then when I look at the fourth stanza, that same pattern of a question, line break, answer is happening. So I hope you all just enjoyed learning about these 3 poetic features: stanzas, rhyming words, and line breaks.